Hello and welcome to the exciting world of the Amiga computer, where your only limits are your imagination and your creativity. My name is Chuck Petropoulos, and I'll be your host for this first in the professional tutorial series for the Amiga. The information is based on my experiences training people on the Amiga. I've tried to make it as simple, practical, and easy to understand as possible, taking you step by step from opening up the boxes, setting up the system, and even finally winning at the wheel with Pat and Vanna. Being the professional series, to ensure professional quality, I hired the prestigious marketing firm of Pitcham, Sellum, and Cheatham to advise me as to the tape design. They recommended using a beautiful young woman to demonstrate the system. I felt this a very sexist point of view, but to be objective, I'm going to leave it up to you, the viewers, to decide. So what you're going to see now are two separate scenes. Wait till they're finished. Vote on the one you feel will be best for the tape. And they are going to roll right now. The voting was so close it's unbelievable that we've decided to keep both of them in the tape for your benefit. One last point before we begin. Some people say tutorial videos can be very boring. Now realize this could never occur here, but if you find too much information to digest at one time, fast forward to the debut of the Amiga TV channel. TV like only the Amiga can produce. Then rewind and review whatever section you need to go over, as this is the advantage of video. Most important, sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy your Amiga.
The tape is divided into the following sections: System Overview, Setting up the System, a how-to on the operating system, the 3-disc software set, hints and tips, and finally the debut of the Amiga TV channel. So let's begin with a system overview. The Amiga is unmatched price to performance of any computer on the market today. It debuted in 1985 with the introduction of the 1000, a 68,000 base system with co-processor custom chips, affording superior graphics, music, and video capabilities, along with true multitasking. In 1987, the system was upgraded to the 500, offering additional features at lower cost. The kickstart moved to the motherboard and 512K RAM standard. Also introduced was the 2000, offering the Amiga as a true multimedia workstation. It comes with 1 meg RAM standard and the ability to be expanded to almost any application imaginable. One step up from that is the 2000 HD, a 2000 with a 40 megabyte hard drive installed, allowing a lot of storage capabilities on the machine. And finally, the top of the line, the Amiga 2500, offering 3 megabytes of RAM, again with the 40 megabyte hard drive, and a 6830 CPU for advanced applications. If possible, I recommend using either an Amiga 500 with 1 megabyte of RAM and an external disk drive, which is what we'll be using for the tape, or an Amiga 2000 with a second internal disk drive. Even at minimum wage, you'll find it pays for itself very quickly. And finally, you're ready. The boxes are here. You're ready to unpack. You've made your choices. You've chosen your favorite software for the Amiga. And we're ready to begin. If possible, save all boxes and packing in case you have to return any of the equipment. Send in your warranty card to protect yourself and for updates. Double check all parts. If anything is missing, contact your dealer immediately. Yes, it's true. We're finally ready to have the unpacking experience, starting with the 500, which contains the computer, the mouse, the power supply, the 2 system operating disks, and the 500 enhancer manuals. We'll be using the CA880 external disk drive, along with using the Commodore 1084 monitor, and for quality and convenience, an extremely well-made wooden monitor stand. And to hook it all up, the power director to attach all our electrical connections. We'll start by installing the 1/2 meg memory cartridge. Remove the back panel by inserting a small coin. I'm using the 501 cartridge from Commodore. Insert it into the slot, pushing firmly but gently, then refasten the back panel on top of that. On the rear of the 500 are the various connectors to attach all your devices. Always make sure power is off before attaching any cables. First, we'll install the 5-prong power supply plug. For these illustrations, I will be attaching only one plug at a time to simplify the examples. Next, we'll attach the monitor cable onto the RGB connector. Secure the screws to ensure grounding and safe connections. The cable from here will go into the back of the monitor itself. I'm using a 1084D Commodore monitor. If your monitor differs, follow the instructions that come with it. We begin by first attaching the power supply plug into the back, then attaching the other end of the monitor cable we had just installed onto the back of the 500 into the RGB input. Next, we'll be attaching the audio cable onto the back, which we will later be attaching to the back of the 500. Next, we're going to attach our disk drive cable. Again, securing them with a screwdriver to ensure grounding and safety connections. Next, we'll attach the printer cable into the parallel port in the back, and then attach the other end of that into the printer itself, in this case a Panasonic KXP1124 printer. Again, be sure power is off before attaching any cables to any devices. Next, we're going to attach the stereo audio cables, the Amiga featuring 4-voice stereo sound. Put it into the left and the right. Next, we'll plug the mouse into joystick 1 and into joystick 2, your favorite choice of joysticks, because on the Amiga you can play some real arcade action games, unmatched by any other system. Also on the far right of the 500 is a mono plug outputting a black and white video signal of the computer. This can be hooked up into the back of your monitor, into the video input plug, and then on the monitor is a switch in the front, switching between the RGB and the composite signal. Try it later on after it's powered up. If you're into music, you can attach a MIDI cable into the back serial connector, allowing you to use any MIDI device that you care to. And finally, we'll be plugging all the equipment into the back of the power director as it is marked on the back. The computer, next the monitor, and then finally the printer connector. And from that point on, we will just be turning the power on. First, turn on the on switch on your power supply. Then next, turn on the power switch on your monitor. And then finally, we're going to turn the power switch on to the printer. These devices now will be controlled through the power director The advantages of the director are surge protection, ease of use, the ability to discharge the static electricity from your body onto it, and individual on-off switches for each piece of equipment. And finally, it's done. We've assembled the system. We're ready to move on to the next step. To start with, here's our recommended stuff that we're going to need to start. A box of 10 double-sided, double-density, name-brand discs, a mouse pad. Please read the manual. And please count 10 Mississippis, full Mississippis, before turning the equipment back on after you've turned it off. You can label your disk drives to make it easy for yourself, the internal disk drive being called DF0, and the external drive being called DF1. When you first sit down to the unit, touch the power director to discharge any static electricity on your body. Then next you want to power up the system by turning on the master switch, the computer switch, the monitor switch, and the printer switch. The power light will then come on your computer, and you'll see a screen showing a hand holding a Workbench disk. When you see that, insert your Workbench 1.3 operating system disk into drive DF0. The disk drive light will go on as the computer reads the information. Before we continue, I'd like to discuss disk care. Set the read-write tab. When you can see through the tab, it means the disk is protected. When the tab is down, you're able to write information onto the tab. Make sure your system disk you can see through the tab. Never touch the metal parts of the disk. Never take the disk out of the disk drive while the light is on. This can destroy data on the disk and even permanently damage the disk itself. Never leave disks or any other computer equipment in direct sunlight. So again, let's review. At the prompt, put in your Workbench disk. What will occur then is the computer will begin to read the information from the disk, loading the operating system into the computer. It informs you as to the steps it's performing on screen, as you can see, and takes a few minutes to load until finally your initial screen will show up. If you're using a 500 or a 2000 system, the ART imaging symbol will not appear, as that is a hard drive symbol. In addition, the numbers up top may be smaller on your screen, as these indicate the size of the RAM memory that is on your system. First things first, we want to copy our system disk, format blank disk, install the printer driver to use the printer, set the date and the time, and learn how to reboot or restart the computer off the keyboard. For a OneDrive system, move the pointer by moving the mouse. Place the pointer on top of the picture of the Workbench 1.3 disk called an icon. Press the left mouse button to highlight it, then move the pointer to the upper left corner, pressing down the right mouse button and holding down to access menus. We're going to choose Duplicate, release the button, and a requester box will appear informing us what to do. The source disk is Workbench, so click Continue. It will now start reading the information from the Workbench disk and will inform you when to insert the blank disk that it calls Workbench 1.3. When you've inserted it, click Continue. It will then continue to write the information. This takes 3 separate passes on a OneDrive system. When it's finally finished, it will inform you the disk copy is finished and has created a copy of the Workbench that it's called. The next thing we want to do is rename that. So again, place the pointer on top of the Workbench, copy of Workbench, disk, press the left mouse button once to highlight. Move the pointer up to the upper left corner, holding down the right mouse button. Keeping the right mouse button held down, move it down to rename and release the button. Then you will see the name in a little requester box where you will type in information or delete characters to change that name. So start pressing your delete key as it deletes the information. Very important thing here. A lot of people forget to put the cursor onto the first letter when they rename, and the system does not recognize it. Always put the cursor on the first letter of what you're renaming, as then it will be an exact duplication of the original name. Put the cursor on there, press the return key on your keyboard, and you'll see the copy of the workbench will then be renamed Workbench itself. Then we want to repeat the process for the Extras 1.3 disk. We want to make working copies of the operating system disks and place the originals in a safe, dry place in case the copies are ever damaged. So to duplicate the Extras disk, we place the pointer on top of the disk, pressing once with the left mouse button to highlight, then move the pointer to the upper left corner of the screen, pressing down the right mouse button and holding, moving down the menu choices until we come to duplicate. The difference here being to request the Workbench disk and then request the Extras disk, and the process continues as we did before. The 2-drive copy is much faster and easier. First we'll take our blank disk, again name brand double-sided double density. We're going to attach a label to that. First we'll peel the label off. Attach it to it, then label it Copy of Workbench 1.3. We're going to insert that into drive DF1. On our screen, the disk icon of DF1 appears. Then we want to take our pointer, move it on top of the workbench, holding in the left mouse button, drag that on top of the DF1 picture. A requester will then appear. Hit continue as the information is correct, and the reading, writing, and verifying process will go on to make a copy of the disk in one pass. When it's done, it will inform us the disk copy is finished and the same rename process as before is used. To format, insert a blank into DF1. Taking the pointer, highlight the disk, move the pointer up to the menus, choosing from disk the initialize menu, releasing the button. A requester appears. Hit continue. Hit continue again, and the formatting process continues for the 79 tracks. Inform us in the end when it is initialized and naming the disk empty. To install the printer driver, put the pointer over the workbench disk. Double-click with the left mouse button twice quickly. That opens up the workbench window. Move the pointer to the Utilities drawer. Double-click again with the left mouse button. That opens up the Utilities window. Move the pointer to the Install Printer. Double-click with the left mouse button to open up the Install Printer. A screen appears. At the top of the screen, a requester will come up asking you to insert your Extras 1.3 disk into the drive. Insert that into the drive. And it will list all the available printers that can be used for your system. Check your Enhancer 1.3 manual to choose the printer that is correct for your system. When you have it, type it onto there